The laptop screen glowed in the dark bedroom. 3:47 a.m. Rebecca's fingers shook as she typed a password one more time. LILIY 2018. Their daughter's name, the year she was born. The screen unlocked. She almost closed it, almost convinced herself this was wrong, that good wives don't spy. The trust means not looking. But then she saw the folder, right there on the desktop. Project R. R. For Rebecca? Had to be. Maybe it was a surprise. An anniversary gift. Photos from their trip to Italy. Something sweet. She clicked it. The folder opened. Hundreds of files, documents, photos, videos. Rebecca clicked the first photo. Her face filled the screen. But not a photo she remembered taking. This was her sleeping, mouth slightly open, drool on the pillow. Unflattering, vulnerable. The file name? specimen_morning_unaware.jpg. Specimen. Her stomach turned. She clicked another photo. Her in the shower, taken through a crack in the door. She hadn't known he was there. Another. Her crying in the car. She remembered that day. Fight with her sister. She'd thought she was alone. Another. Her changing clothes, her on the toilet, her face twisted in anger during an argument. Hundreds of them, all labeled, all cataloged. Subject _emotional breakdown _043. Study _grief response _morning. Behavioral pattern _stress _evening. Rebecca's hand covered her mouth. She wanted to scream, but no sound came. She clicked on a document. Observation log, day 847. It opened. Subject continues to show signs of dependency. Emotional manipulation via withdrawal technique proving effective. Subject cried for 43 minutes after I ignored her at dinner. Attachment deepening as planned. Subject. He called her subject. She scrolled. Hundreds of them. Years of them. Day 92. Subject pregnant. Opportunity to document maternal behavioral changes. Will use infant as additional control mechanism. Lily. He was talking about Lily. Day 654. Subject suspects nothing. The marriage facade remains intact. Data collection continues smoothly. Rebecca's whole body went numb. She clicked on a video file. Her own face appeared, talking to the camera, to him, last week. I feel like you don't hear me anymore, video Rebecca said, tears in her eyes. And then his voice, behind the camera. Warm, concerned. I hear you, baby. I'm listening. But in the corner of the video, she could see it now, a small timestamp and notation. Emotional manipulation response test 3, recording 15. The man she'd loved for 8 years, the father of her child, the person she'd trusted with everything, had been studying her, like a scientist studies a lab rat. And she never knew.
This isn't a story about a cheating husband. It's worse. This is about a woman who thought she was building a life, a marriage, a family. But she was actually living inside an experiment, a research project, with her as the specimen. Rebecca Chen married Daniel Morrison 8 years ago. She thought it was love, the kind of love you read about. Soulmates, best friends, partners. But Daniel? Daniel saw something else. An opportunity. See, Daniel wasn't just a husband. He was a PhD student, studying human behavior, writing his dissertation on long-term emotional manipulation in intimate relationships. And Rebecca? She was his data. For 8 years, Daniel documented everything. Every fight, every vulnerable moment, every private second. He recorded her, photographed her, wrote detailed observations about her responses to his interventions. He turned their marriage into a lab, their home into a research facility, their daughter into a variable. And Rebecca never had a clue. Not until the night she couldn't sleep, the night she needed to check something on his laptop, the night she typed in the password and found proof that the man sleeping beside her had been wearing a mask for 8 years. This is the story of how love can be the perfect disguise for something much darker. How the person who promises to protect you can be the one dissecting you. And how the scariest monsters don't hide in closets. They sleep in your bed, kiss you goodnight, and take notes while you cry. This is the story of Rebecca Chen and the man who turned I do into You're My Experiment.
Before we go deeper, take 1 second to subscribe. It helps this channel survive these dark investigations. And tell me, where in the world are you listening from? I always check the comments.
Let's go back to before, when Rebecca Chen still believed in fairy tales. Rebecca was 30 when she met Daniel. She worked as an elementary school teacher, 3rd grade. She loved it. Loved the kids, the crayons, the way 8-year-olds still thought she knew everything. She grew up in a big family, 3 sisters, loud dinners, lots of love, but also lots of chaos. Her parents fought a lot, yelling, slamming doors, then hugging and making up. It was normal to her. Passion, they called it. Rebecca learned early. Love was loud. Love was messy. Love was dramatic. So when she met Daniel, quiet, calm, steady Daniel, it felt like coming home after a storm. Daniel Morrison, 32 when they met, tall, handsome in that professor way, wire-rimmed glasses, always reading, always thinking. He was doing his PhD in psychology, studying at the university. Smart, really smart. The kind of smart that made you feel special when he paid attention to you. They met at a coffee shop. Rebecca was grading papers. Daniel was reading a book about the brain. Their eyes met. He smiled. She smiled back. "What are you reading?" she asked. He showed her some thick book about behavioral psychology. "Is it good?" she asked. "It's about how people work, how we think, how we choose, how we love." She laughed. "Can you really study love in a book?" He smiled. "I'm trying to figure that out." They talked for 3 hours. She missed her dinner plans, didn't care. Daniel was different. He listened, really listened. Asked questions about her childhood, her dreams, her fears, like he genuinely cared. Most guys talked about themselves. Daniel wanted to know about her. It felt incredible. They started dating, slow at first, coffee, walks, museums. He was thoughtful, remembered little things she mentioned, showed up with her favorite tea, left notes on her car. You make me feel seen, Rebecca told him one night, 3 months in. That's because I see you, he said softly. Really see you. She fell hard. Daniel was perfect, patient, kind, never yelled, never got angry like her father did. When they fought, and they rarely did, he stayed calm, rational, would say things like, "Let's take a breath," and "Help me understand how you're feeling." He was everything she'd been looking for. After a year, he proposed. Simple, sweet, in the same coffee shop where they met. Got down on one knee. "Rebecca Chen, you're the most fascinating person I've ever met. Will you marry me?" Fascinating. She loved that word. Not beautiful, not hot. Fascinating. She said yes. They got married 6 months later. Small wedding. Her big family. His small one. Just his mom. Quiet and polite. His dad had died when Daniel was young. Heart attack. Daniel was only 12. "It made me want to understand people," he told Rebecca once. "Why we do what we do. Why we hurt. Why we heal. I never want to hurt you the way my dad hurt my mom by leaving." It made her love him more. The first year of marriage was good. Easy. They got a small house, adopted a cat. Rebecca kept teaching. Daniel worked on his dissertation. They were happy. Or she thought they were. Looking back now, after everything, Rebecca can see the small, weird things. The things she explained away. Like how Daniel always had his phone on him. Always. Even in the shower. She'd joke about it. "What, you cheating on me?" And he'd laugh. "No, baby, just work stuff. You know how my advisor is." Or how he'd ask strange questions. "How did that make you feel? On a scale of 1 to 10, how angry were you?" "Interesting. Tell me more about why you reacted that way." She thought he was being a good listener, using his psychology training to be a better husband. She didn't realize he was collecting data, or the way he'd sometimes just watch her. She'd be cooking or reading or folding laundry, and she'd look up and he'd be staring. When she asked why, he'd say, "You're beautiful. I like looking at you." She never noticed he was taking mental notes. Year 2, Rebecca got pregnant. Surprise! They weren't trying yet, but they were happy about it. Daniel was excited, supportive. Went to every appointment, read all the books, asked the doctor lots of questions about maternal behavior changes and hormonal impact on decision-making. Rebecca thought he was being thorough, caring. Now she knows. He was fascinated, not by the baby, by how pregnancy changed her, how her brain and body shifted, how she became a different research subject. Lily was born in September. Tiny, perfect. 10 fingers, 10 toes. Rebecca fell in love instantly. That overwhelming mother love that takes over everything. Daniel seemed to love Lily too. Good dad, changed diapers, did night feedings, patient with the crying, but also observant, watching, always watching how Rebecca handled things, how she bonded, how she stressed, how she cried from exhaustion. "You're doing great," he'd say. "Let me help." And he would help. But later, much later, Rebecca would find notes. Day 3 post-birth, subject showing signs of postpartum anxiety. Intervention,
Comfort and reassurance. Result, temporary relief, increased dependence. He was helping her so she'd need him more. For 6 years after Lily was born, life continued. Routine, normal. Rebecca taught. Daniel worked on his dissertation. It was taking forever, he said. Complicated research. But he was close. So close. They had good days and bad days, like any marriage. They fought sometimes. About money, about Lily's bedtime, about Daniel spending too much time on his research. But they always made up. And Daniel was always so rational about it. Never yelled, never said mean things, would calmly explain his perspective, make her feel like maybe she was overreacting. I think you're stressed, he'd say gently. Maybe you need to rest. Let me handle dinner. Let me put Lily to bed. You take care of you. And she'd feel grateful, feel bad for starting the fight, feel like he was the reasonable one and she was the emotional one. Classic gaslighting. But she didn't know that word yet. Rebecca's friends loved Daniel. They'd say, "You're so lucky. He's so supportive, so calm. Wish my husband was like that." Her family loved him too, especially compared to her sister's husbands who were loud and messy like their dad. Daniel was the stable one, the smart one, the good one. Nobody suspected. How could they? He was perfect. Too perfect.
The cracks started small. So small, Rebecca almost missed them. Year 7, Lily was in 1st grade. Rebecca was teaching. Daniel was still working on his dissertation. 8 years now. Most PhDs take 5, maybe 6. But Daniel kept saying he needed more data, more research, more time. His advisor kept approving extensions, which was weird, but Daniel said the research was groundbreaking, worth the wait. Rebecca started to feel off. Can't explain it. Just a feeling, like something was wrong, but she couldn't see it. Little things bothered her, like how Daniel had started putting cameras around the house. For security, he said, after a neighbor got robbed. Made sense. But the cameras were everywhere. Living room, kitchen, even one pointed at the bedroom door. "Don't you think that's a lot?" Rebecca asked. "Can't be too careful," Daniel said, "especially with Lily. I want to know she's safe." Hard to argue with that. Or how Daniel's laptop was suddenly password protected. It never was before. They'd shared computers freely, but now his was locked. Work stuff, he explained. My dissertation. My advisor said I need to protect my research. Academic theft is a real thing. Made sense. She didn't push. But it bothered her. Year 7, month 4. Rebecca noticed Daniel watching her more. Not in a loving way, in a studying way, like she was a puzzle he was trying to solve. During arguments, which were happening more now, he'd just observe. Stay quiet. Let her get upset. Then when she finished, he'd say something like, "Are you done?" Or, "Feel better?" It made her feel crazy, like her feelings didn't matter, like she was performing and he was the audience. One night, after a big fight about him missing Lily's school play again for his research, Rebecca cried, hard, sitting on the bathroom floor, door locked. She heard footsteps outside. Daniel, waiting. When she finally came out, eyes red, face swollen, he was standing there. And the look on his face, it wasn't concern. It was interest. Clinical interest. "How long were you out there?" she asked. "The whole time. I wanted to make sure you were okay." But something in his voice, something in his eyes, made her feel watched. Studied. Not loved. Studied. She started noticing other things. Daniel's phone, the one he always had on him, she caught glimpses sometimes,
Lots of files, lots of photos. Work stuff, he'd say, quickly turning it off. One time, she swore she saw a photo of herself, sleeping, on his phone. But when she asked, he said she was seeing things. "It's Lily," he insisted. "You're just tired." She believed him. Why wouldn't she? He was her husband. Year 7, month 8, Rebecca found a notebook in Daniel's desk. She wasn't snooping, just looking for stamps. The notebook was labeled Field Notes. She opened it. Pages and pages of handwriting. Daniel's messy scrawl. At first she thought it was his dissertation work, but then she saw her initial, R. R showed increased anxiety today. Trigger, discussion of finances. Response, tears, withdrawal. Duration, 23 minutes. Intervention, physical comfort, reassurance. Outcome, temporary relief, increased attachment. She read it 3 times, trying to understand. It sounded like I was a patient, a subject. But no, that couldn't be right. Maybe he was using me as an example for his research, anonymously. Lots of researchers do that, use their own lives as case studies. She put the notebook back, tried to forget it, but couldn't. The fights got worse. Rebecca felt like she was losing her mind. Daniel was always so calm, so rational, and she was always so emotional, so overreacting. He'd say things like, "I think you're being irrational right now. Let's talk when you're calmer. You're not making sense. Maybe you should see someone, a therapist. I'm worried about you." And she'd wonder, is he right? Am I crazy? Am I the problem? Her friends started to worry. "You seem off," Maya said. "Are you okay?" "I'm fine," Rebecca lied. "Just stressed. Teaching, Lily, marriage, stuff." "Daniel still perfect?" Maya asked, joking, but not really. "Yeah, he's perfect." But she didn't believe it anymore. Year 8. Month 2. Rebecca couldn't shake the feeling. Something was wrong. Very wrong. She started paying attention. Really paying attention. And she saw it. Little things. Daniel writing in his notebook right after our fights. Daniel adjusting the cameras when he thought she wasn't looking. Daniel asking strange questions. Like, "How did that make you feel? Why do you think you reacted that way? Interesting. Tell me more." Not husband questions, therapist, researcher questions. One night, she pretended she was asleep, watched through half-closed eyes as Daniel got up, grabbed his phone, took photos of her, multiple photos from different angles. Then she heard typing, saw the glow of his laptop. For an hour, he sat there, typing, looking at her, typing more. She wanted to scream, wanted to sit up and demand answers, but fear kept her still. Because if she was right, if he really was doing what she thought he was doing, then her entire marriage was a lie. And she wasn't ready to face that yet. Year 8. Month 6, Rebecca couldn't take it anymore. The feeling, the watching, the weirdness. She needed to know. So she planned, waited for the right moment. When Daniel was in the shower, when he'd left his laptop on the kitchen counter, unlocked for just a minute while he grabbed a towel. She looked. Quickly. Saw a file open. Dissertation draft, Chapter 7, Long-Term Observation Results. She read one sentence. Just one. Subject R. Married to researcher. showed predictable behavioral patterns across 8-year observation period, confirming hypothesis that intimate partners make ideal long-term study subjects due to built-in trust and access. Subject R. Her. She closed the laptop, heart pounding, went back to cooking dinner like nothing happened, but everything had happened. That night, she barely slept, lay next to Daniel, this man, this stranger, and knew she had to see the rest, had to find proof, even if it destroyed her.
The thing about discovering you're being studied is you can't unknow it. Every interaction became suspect. Every touch, every "I love you." Was it real? Or was it part of the experiment? Rebecca started watching Daniel the way he'd been watching her. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. After fights, he'd disappear. Come back half an hour later, calm, collected. She used to think he was cooling off, being mature. Now she realized he was writing it down, recording data. Subject emotional response, 8 out of 10 intensity. Duration, 34 minutes. Successful de-escalation using withdrawal technique. When he comforted her, was it love or intervention? When he bought her flowers, was it affection or manipulation to see how she'd respond? When they made love, was he present or observing her behavioral patterns during intimacy? She felt sick all the time, physically ill. But she couldn't confront him. Not yet. Because if she was wrong, if she was just being paranoid, anxious, crazy like he kept suggesting, she'd ruin everything. And if she was right, she'd ruin everything anyway. Rebecca decided she needed proof, real proof, before she could confront him or leave or call the police or whatever you do when you discover your husband is treating you like a lab rat. She needed to get into that laptop. She knew his password. Had to be something meaningful, something he'd remember. He wasn't the type to write it down. She tried the obvious ones. Their anniversary, his birthday, her birthday, Lily's birthday. Nothing worked. She tried his mother's name, his father's name, his childhood dog. Still nothing. For 2 weeks she tried, failed, every time. Then one day, watching Lily play, it hit her. She waited until Daniel was teaching. He taught one class a semester, always Thursday afternoons, 3 hours, guaranteed alone time. Rebecca sat down at his laptop, typed slowly. Lily 2018. Their daughter's name, the year she was born. It unlocked. Rebecca's hands shook. This was it, the moment of truth. She saw the desktop, organized, color-coded folders, dissertation, research, data, Project R. Project R. She clicked it, and her world ended. Hundreds of files, thousands maybe, all labeled, all organized, all about her. Photos, videos, audio recordings, documents, spreadsheets. She started with the photos, clicked random ones. Her sleeping, her in the shower, her crying, her angry, her laughing, her eating, her playing with Lily, her getting dressed, her sitting on the toilet, her everything. Every private moment, documented. The file names made her want to vomit. Specimen on morning routine, day 347. Subject emotional state, stress response 092. Behavioral data, conflict resolution test 15. She clicked on videos, watched herself living her life, not knowing she was being filmed, not knowing every moment was being recorded, analyzed, studied. In one video, she was crying about her mom's cancer scare. She remembered that day. Daniel had held her, said all the right things, made her feel safe. But now, watching it, she could see the camera angle, perfectly positioned, and in the corner, a timestamp and notes.
Grief response documentation. Subject, highly emotional. Successful comfort intervention. Increased attachment observed. He'd set her up, positioned the camera, then comforted her while recording her breakdown. He opened the documents, observation logs. Years of them, daily entries, starting from, she checked the dates, from their first date. Day 1, the coffee shop. Initial contact successful. Subject responsive to active listening techniques appears to have attachment issues stemming from chaotic family dynamics, promising candidate for long-term study. Will pursue further. He'd targeted her from the beginning. She kept reading, scrolling, finding the worst parts. Subject shows signs of suspicion. Must increase reassurance techniques. Gaslighting protocol initiated. Subject expressing doubt about relationship. Implementing withdrawal technique to increase attachment anxiety. Subject crying for extended period. Excellent data. Photographed for dissertation visual evidence. Subject discovering research materials, intervention required. Convinced subject she was, quote, imagining things. Successful reality distortion. Every fight, every doubt, every time she questioned herself, he'd planned it, caused it, documented it. She found a file labeled Dissertation Final Draft. She opened it. The title page, Intimate Betrayal, an 8-year longitudinal study of emotional manipulation in committed relationships by Daniel Morrison. The abstract began. This dissertation presents findings from an 8-year covert observational study of a single subject, the researcher's spouse, examining responses to sustained emotional manipulation within an intimate partnership. Subject R, unaware of her participation, provided unprecedented access to authentic behavioral data. Unaware of her participation. Their entire marriage. His dissertation. She was never his wife. She was his thesis.
Rebecca sat there, laptop open, proof glowing on the screen. And she understood. Everything. Every moment of 8 years. Every I love you. Every kiss. Every fight. Every makeup. Every vulnerable confession. Every private moment. All of it. Data. She wasn't his partner. She was his project. And the worst part, the absolutely worst part, she loved him. Still. Even now. Even knowing. That's what 8 years of manipulation does. It rewires your brain. Makes you doubt your own knowing. Makes you think maybe he did love her. Maybe this was twisted love. Maybe she's overreacting. Maybe... No. She stopped herself. This wasn't love. Love doesn't document. Love doesn't study. Love doesn't treat you like an experiment. This was abuse, dressed up as research, disguised as marriage. Rebecca looked at the clock. Daniel would be home in an hour. She had a choice. Confront him. Scream. Rage. Demand answers. Or, she looked at the files again. Hundreds of them. Thousands. Evidence. Of what? She wasn't sure yet. But evidence. She grabbed a USB drive from the drawer. Started copying. Everything. Every file. Every photo. Every document. Every horrible piece of proof that her life had been a lie. The progress bar moved slowly. 47%. 53%. 68%. She kept checking the time. He'd be home soon. 82%. 91%. 97%. Done. She ejected the drive, put it in her pocket, closed the laptop, went to the kitchen, started making dinner. Normal. Everything normal. When Daniel came home 20 minutes later, she smiled. "Hey, honey, how was class?" He kissed her cheek. "Good, productive. How was your day?" "Fine," she said.
Just fine. He looked at her, studying, always studying. You seem different. Something happened? She stirred the pasta, kept her voice light. Nope, just tired. You know how it is. He nodded, seemed satisfied, went to check his laptop. Rebecca held her breath. He looked at it, opened it, checked something, closed it. Didn't notice. Didn't realize she'd been inside. Seen everything. They ate dinner normal, talked about their days. Lily chattered about school, normal. Watched TV after, normal. They went to bed. He kissed her goodnight. Love you, he said. Love you too, she replied. The lie tasted like poison. He fell asleep, easy, peaceful, no guilt, no worry. And Rebecca lay there, next to him, this monster, this stranger, this man who'd stolen 8 years of her life and called it research. And she planned.
Rebecca spent 3 days deciding. 3 days of pretending everything was normal while carrying a USB drive full of nightmares in her pocket. She could confront him, but then what? He'd explain it away, make her doubt. He was good at that. 8 years of practice. She could leave, pack up Lily and go, but he'd fight for custody. And he was smart, convincing. A PhD student. Who would believe her story? She could go to the police, but what would she say? My husband studied me? That wasn't illegal. Unethical, maybe. Morally wrong, definitely. But illegal? She didn't know. So she did something else. She called his dissertation advisor. Hi, this is Rebecca Morrison, Daniel's wife. I was wondering if we could meet. I have some concerns about his research methods. The advisor, Dr. Patricia Wells, professor of psychology, sounded confused. Concerns? What kind of concerns? Rebecca took a breath. The kind that involve human subjects and consent and ethics. There was a pause, a long pause. I think, Dr. Wells said slowly, you should come to my office tomorrow. Bring whatever evidence you have. Rebecca agreed, hung up, looked at Daniel, who was in the other room, completely unaware his project was about to be exposed. And for the first time in 8 years, she smiled a real smile, because she realized something. He'd made one mistake. He documented everything, every terrible thing he'd done, written it down, photographed it, recorded it. He'd created the evidence of his own crime. And now she had it. But what Rebecca didn't know, what she couldn't know, was that Daniel had made a backup plan. And when she walked into Dr. Wells's office the next day with her USB drive full of nightmares, ready to expose him, Daniel was already there, sitting, calmly, smiling, waiting. Hi, honey, he said softly. I think we need to talk. Rebecca froze in the doorway. Daniel, here, in his advisor's office, sitting casual, like he owned the place. Dr. Wells stood behind her desk. Older woman, gray hair, kind face, but right now she looked uncomfortable. Mrs. Morrison, she said, please sit down. Rebecca didn't move, her eyes on Daniel. What is this? Daniel smiled. That same smile, the one she'd loved for 8 years. Now it looked like a mask. I figured you'd come here eventually, after you found my files. Her blood went cold. You knew? Of course I knew. He gestured to the empty chair next to him. I have monitoring software on my laptop. Alerts me every time someone accesses it. I got a notification 3 days ago at 2:47 p.m., Thursday, while I was teaching. He'd known this whole time and said nothing. Watched me pretend, watched me plan, probably documented that too. Sit, he said again, gentle, like he was talking to a child. Please. Rebecca looked at Dr. Wells. Did you know? About what he was doing? Dr. Wells's expression was hard to read. Why don't you sit down and we can discuss this? Rebecca wanted to run. Every instinct screamed, leave, now. But she needed answers, needed to understand. She sat, clutching her bag. The USB drive felt heavy in her pocket. Daniel leaned back, relaxed, in control. I assume you want to file a complaint. Ethics violation? Maybe try to get my research shut down? Your research? Rebecca's voice cracked. I'm not research. I'm your wife. You're both, he said simply. That's the beauty of it. Dr. Wells cleared her throat. Daniel, perhaps you should explain. I'm getting there. He looked at Rebecca. Those eyes, the ones she'd gazed into on their wedding day, now empty, clinical. Let me tell you what you don't understand about science, about research, about the pursuit of knowledge. Rebecca said nothing, waited. Real breakthroughs require real data, not lab studies with college students pretending to be in relationships, not surveys where people lie about their feelings, real, authentic, long-term observation of human behavior in natural settings. I'm not a setting. I'm a person. You're both, he repeated, and you've contributed to something remarkable. 8 years of data, unprecedented access to emotional responses, behavioral patterns, attachment formation. Do you know how valuable that is? How much this will advance the field? Rebecca stared at him. You're insane. I'm a scientist. You're a psychopath. He smiled. Actually smiled. I was tested, actually, as part of my research. No psychopathy, no antisocial personality disorder, just high intelligence and low emotional interference. Perfect for observational work. Rebecca turned to Dr. Wells. You can't let this stand. He violated ethics. He filed all the appropriate paperwork. Dr. Wells interrupted quietly. Rebecca's heart stopped. What? Dr. Wells pulled out a file. Thick, official looking. 3 years ago, Daniel submitted a research proposal for his dissertation. Long-term observational study of intimate partner behavior. It was reviewed by the ethics board. Approved with conditions. Conditions? Rebecca whispered. That the subject would be informed and consent obtained eventually, after the study concluded. The board agreed that prior consent would contaminate the data, so they approved a delayed consent protocol. The subject, you, would be fully debriefed after 8 years and given the opportunity to consent retroactively or request destruction of all data. The university knew? The ethics board knew, Dr. Wells corrected. A small committee. They deemed it acceptable given the scientific value and the researchers' assurance that no physical or severe psychological harm would occur. No severe psychological harm? Rebecca's voice rose. He's been manipulating me for 8 years, documenting me without my knowledge, using our marriage, our daughter, as research tools. Emotional discomfort is not the same as harm, Daniel said calmly. I never hurt you, never cheated, never abused you physically. I was a good husband, attentive, supportive. You were happy, weren't you? Until you found out? That was the knife.
That was the twist. Because he was right. She had been happy. She thought their marriage was good, great even. The harm wasn't in what he did. It was in the lie underneath everything. So what now? Rebecca asked, voice hollow, defeated. Now, Daniel said, you have a choice. You can consent, retroactively, sign the forms, allow me to publish my dissertation with you as the primary subject. You'd be anonymous, of course, subject R. Your contribution would advance the field significantly. And if I refuse, then I destroy all the data. 8 years of research, gone. My dissertation fails. My career ends before it starts. He paused. And you'll have destroyed something important, something that could help thousands of people understand relationships better. You're manipulating me right now, trying to make me feel guilty for not wanting to be your lab rat. I'm giving you options. You're giving me an illusion of choice. He smiled. Prove it. Dr. Wells spoke up. Mrs. Morrison, I understand this is shocking, but legally, Daniel has done nothing wrong. The ethics board approved his methods, and morally, well, that's more complex. His research could genuinely help people. By violating his own wife's privacy? By treating me like an experiment? By studying real human behavior in real contexts, Dr. Wells said. Sometimes scientific progress requires difficult choices, uncomfortable methods. Rebecca looked between them, Daniel, calm and collected, Dr. Wells, uncomfortable but complicit. The whole system, it protected him, not her. If I refuse, Rebecca said slowly, and you destroy the data, what happens to us? To our marriage? Daniel was quiet for a moment. Then, I don't know. Can you love someone who lied to you for 8 years? Can you love someone you were studying? I don't know that either. Rebecca stood up. I need time. To think. To process. Of course, Daniel said. Take all the time you need. You have 30 days to decide. After that, the ethics board requires me to either publish or destroy the data. University policy. 30 days to decide if her pain, her private moments, her entire life would become public knowledge. Anonymously, but still. Or to destroy 8 years of her husband's work, and probably our marriage too. Some choice. She left the office, walked to her car, sat in the driver's seat, and screamed, long, loud, until her throat hurt, then drove home. To the house she thought was a home, but was really a laboratory. To the man she thought was her husband, but was really a researcher. To the life she thought was real, but was really just data.
Rebecca didn't go home that day. Couldn't. Instead, she drove to Maya's house, her best friend since college, knocked on the door. And when Maya answered, Rebecca collapsed, told her everything through tears and rage and disbelief. Maya listened, held her, and when Rebecca finished, Maya said, "We're calling a lawyer." They found one who specialized in privacy law, a woman named Jennifer Torres, sharp, smart, angry, on Rebecca's behalf. Jennifer listened to the whole story, looked at the files on the USB drive, read the ethics approval documents Daniel had shown Rebecca. Then she said, "This is complicated." "Can we sue?" Rebecca asked. "Maybe. The ethics approval gives him legal cover, but there might be grounds for emotional distress, invasion of privacy, or violation of marital trust. It depends on the judge, the jury, how sympathetic they are. What are my chances? Jennifer was quiet. Then, honestly, 40-60. Against you. He has institutional support, ethics board approval, and his defense will be that he was a good husband, that you were happy, that the only harm was the knowledge of the study. That's insane. That's the law. Rebecca decided to fight anyway. Filed for divorce. Filed a lawsuit against Daniel, against the university, against the ethics board. It made the news. Local at first, then national. Wife sues husband for studying her. Was their marriage a research project? The internet exploded. Some people supported Rebecca. This is abuse. Consent matters. She deserves justice. Others defended Daniel. It's just research. She's overreacting. He didn't cheat or hit her. Grow up. And some said both were wrong. They're both victims of a broken system. Daniel gave interviews. Calm, articulate, sympathetic. I love my wife, he said on camera. This research was never meant to hurt her. It was meant to understand human connection better, to help people. I regret that she feels betrayed, but I don't regret the science. Rebecca watched those interviews, saw him perform. The caring husband, the dedicated researcher, the misunderstood genius. And people believed him. The divorce took 8 months. Messy, painful, public. Custody of Lily became the biggest fight. Daniel wanted 50-50. Said he was a good father. And he was, by all accounts. Patient, involved. Lily loved him. But Rebecca argued, he treated us like experiments. How can I trust him with our daughter? The judge listened, reviewed the evidence, the ethics approval, the research notes, everything, and ruled joint custody, 50-50. Daniel had done nothing illegal, nothing that proved he was a bad parent. Rebecca felt gutted. But Lily was happy. At least there was that. The lawsuit took longer. A year. Depositions, testimonies, expert witnesses on both sides. Psychologists arguing about ethics, lawyers arguing about consent. Daniel's advisor testifying that the research was valuable. Rebecca's therapist testifying about the emotional harm. It went to trial. Jury trial. 12 people who would decide if what Daniel did was wrong enough to punish. The trial lasted 3 weeks. Rebecca had to sit there every day, watching her life, her private life, displayed for strangers. Videos of her crying, photos of her sleeping, transcripts of fights, all admitted as evidence, all shown to the jury, to the media, to the world. Daniel sat there too. Calm, professional. His lawyers presented him as a dedicated scientist, making hard choices for the greater good. They brought in experts, famous psychologists, who said that observational research requires deception sometimes, that Rebecca had been happy until she knew, that knowledge was the harm, not the actions. If someone donates an organ while unconscious and wakes up to find they saved a life, are they a victim or a hero? Mrs. Morrison participated in research that will help countless people. She should be proud. Rebecca wanted to scream, but her lawyer said, "Stay calm. Don't react. Let the jury see you as sympathetic."
So she sat there, silent, while strangers debated if her pain mattered. The verdict came back after 2 days of deliberation. Rebecca stood, hands shaking. Daniel stood too, both waiting. The jury foreman stood, read the verdict. In the matter of Rebecca Morrison versus Daniel Morrison, we find for the defendant. Daniel won. The jury believed him, or at least believed the law was on his side. Rebecca sat down, numb. It was over. She'd lost. Not just the case, everything. But then the foreman continued. However, we wish to state for the record that while the defendant's actions were technically legal, they were morally reprehensible. We encourage Mrs. Morrison to pursue criminal charges if possible, and we hope the university reviews its ethics policies to prevent this from happening again. It was something. Not much, but something. After the trial, things got complicated. Rebecca had lost the lawsuit. Daniel kept his research, was allowed to publish his dissertation. But the public backlash was massive. The university came under fire. Protests, petitions, demands to revoke his degree. They didn't, but they didn't hire him either. No university wanted the controversy. Daniel's dissertation was published, won awards for innovative methodology, but his career was over before it started. No one would hire him. Too toxic. Too famous for the wrong reasons. He ended up teaching high school. Psychology. Ironic. Rebecca got therapy. Real therapy. With a therapist who understood trauma, who helped her process, who never took notes without asking. She rebuilt. Slowly. Took 2 years off teaching, focused on Lily, on healing, on figuring out who she was outside of being studied, and eventually she found peace. Not happiness, not yet, but peace. She wrote a book. Her story, her words, the specimen, my life as an unwilling research subject. It became a bestseller, not because people wanted gossip, but because her story resonated. So many people had been betrayed by those they trusted. Not the same way, but close enough. She became an advocate for research ethics, for consent, for protecting vulnerable people from exploitation disguised as science. And Lily? Lily grew up, healthy, loved, split time between her parents, and eventually, when she was old enough to understand, Rebecca told her the truth. Your father loves you, but he sees the world differently than most people. He sees everything as something to study, even love. Lily thought about that, then asked, did he ever see you as just mom? I don't know, Rebecca admitted. I hope so, but I don't know. And that, maybe, was the saddest part.
2 years after the trial, Rebecca got a package in the mail. No return address, just her name, her new address, the one Daniel shouldn't have known. She opened it carefully. Inside, a USB drive and a note. The note was in Daniel's handwriting. Rebecca, I know you don't want to hear from me, but you deserve to know the truth, the whole truth. I've enclosed something I should have shown you years ago. I'm sorry for everything. D. Rebecca almost threw it away, but curiosity won. She plugged the USB drive into her laptop. One file, video file, labeled Day 1 Before Coffee Shop. She clicked it. The video opened. Daniel, younger, 8 years ago, sitting in front of a camera in his apartment. Video log, Day 1. I'm about to meet a potential research subject. I've been observing her for 2 weeks. She goes to the same coffee shop every Saturday morning, works as a teacher, seems emotionally vulnerable, good candidate for long-term study. The ethics board approved my proposal yesterday, delayed consent protocol. I'm nervous, but excited. This could be the study that defines my career. He paused, looked at the camera, and said something that made Rebecca's blood run cold. He've chosen her, specifically, for her weaknesses. Rebecca kept watching, horrified, fascinated. The video continued, Daniel getting ready, picking out clothes, practicing his opening lines. What are you reading? Is it good? Then he left, the camera still recording, empty apartment for a moment. Then the recording jumped. Different day. Daniel back. Sitting in the same spot. Day 1, evening. Success. Made contact. Subject extremely receptive, already showing attachment behaviors. This is going to work. More jumps. More entries. Day 5, Day 10, Day 30, all leading up to the coffee shop meeting that Rebecca remembered as fate. It wasn't fate. It was planned. All of it. But then the video jumped again. And this time, Daniel looked different. Older. This was recent. Day 2847. 8 years later. Rebecca found my research. Our marriage is over. The study is complete. And I've realized something I didn't expect. I didn't just study her. I think I fell in love with her. Really. Not as a subject, as a person. But I don't know when it happened or if it matters, because I hurt her. And I can't undo that. I can't separate the research from the relationship. They're the same thing, and I don't know if what I felt was real or if I was just observing myself feel things. I don't know what's real anymore. He looked at the camera, eyes tired, older, sad. Rebecca, if you're watching this, I'm sorry. I know sorry isn't enough, but it's all I have. I studied you for science. But somewhere along the way, I forgot you were a person. And that's my failure. Not as a researcher, as a human. The video ended. Rebecca sat there, USB drive still in her laptop, that final message playing in her head. He'd fallen in love with her, maybe, or he thought he had, or he'd observed himself falling in love and documented it. And now he couldn't tell the difference between feeling and studying feeling. Did it matter? Did it change anything? No. And yes. It didn't undo the harm, didn't erase the betrayal, didn't make their marriage real. But it meant he wasn't just a monster. He was a person who'd made terrible choices, who'd valued science over humanity, knowledge over love. And maybe in the end, that was sadder. Because monsters you can hate, but people are complicated. Rebecca ejected the USB drive, put it in a drawer next to all the other evidence of her fake marriage, and she realized she'd never know what was real, what he felt, what she felt, if any of it mattered. And maybe that was the point. Maybe the real betrayal wasn't the studying, it was the uncertainty, the not knowing, the never being able to trust her own memories. He'd taken that from her past, her certainty, her truth.
And that was the harm that couldn't be measured, couldn't be proven in court, couldn't be fixed, just carried.
So, that's the story. Rebecca and Daniel, the experiment that became a marriage, or the marriage that became an experiment. 8 years of love that maybe wasn't love. 8 years of data that definitely was. Rebecca's healing now, building a new life with Lily, with herself, learning to trust again, slowly, carefully. Daniel's teaching high school, his dissertation published, but his career destroyed. Living alone, still studying people, but from a distance now. And Lily's growing up, split between 2 parents, 2 truths, 2 versions of love. The court said Daniel did nothing illegal. The jury agreed. The ethics board had approved it. He had paperwork, protocol, permission. But Rebecca still hurt, still healing, still wondering what was real. And maybe that's the point of this story. Not to answer those questions, but to ask them. What is consent when you don't know you're participating? What is betrayal when everything looks like love? What is harm when there are no bruises, no yelling, no obvious pain? Just the slow erosion of trust, the documentation of private moments, the study of your soul. Maybe harm is the moment you realize the person you loved never saw you as a person, just as data. Maybe betrayal is the moment you understand that your entire relationship was an experiment you never agreed to be part of. Consent is meaningless if you don't know what you're consenting to. Rebecca doesn't have answers. Neither do I. Neither will you. But her story stays with you, makes you think, makes you wonder about the people in your own life, the ones who watch a little too closely, ask a little too many questions, remember a little too much. Are they interested or are they studying? Is it love or is it research? You'll probably never know, and that's the scary part. If this story unsettled you, if it made you question things you thought were solid, if it reminded you that betrayal doesn't always look like betrayal until it's too late, then maybe you're ready for the next one. Because there are more stories like this, more lives lived inside lies, more truths hiding behind love. And we're going to walk through them together, one whispered confession at a time. Stay careful out there. Trust slowly. And remember, sometimes the person taking notes isn't trying to remember you. They're trying to study you. And the difference matters.